a bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'll start with a little background information, and then we're going to talk about Anton's mother, her and Seven, and then her refugee experiences. Kim Tuohy's partially autobiographical novel, Rue, explores the complex concept of motherhood through memory, intergenerational relationships, and themes of displacement. In the very first vignette, the narrator describes her life as an extension of her mother's, with even her name being one character different. Anton's perspective of motherhood is also shaped by becoming the mother of an autistic child. Overall, her mother's resilience, her experiences as a refugee, and her relationship with her aunts show Anton that motherhood is an exercise in adaptation, preparing her to raise a neurodiverse child with patience, kindness, and empathy. So just a bit about the author. So Kim Tuohy was born in Saigon in 1968. She fled Vietnam at the age of 10, and her family settled in Quebec. Anton's mother's stoicism and resilience reflect both Vietnamese cultural expectations and her own personal strength, which later shape how Anton learns to adapt in her own approach. Anton learns a vital lesson in restraint, familial connection, and adaptability from her mother, which help her navigate life's challenges, especially as her family circumstances change over time. Her mother's adaptability and composure are tested when she loses her home, wealth, and social status, which shows Anton that strength as a mother is rooted in adaptability rather than stability. This is a lesson Anton will later apply while navigating raising a neurodiverse child. In Vietnam, her mother was a member of a wealthy family, and her main role was to settle disputes within the household. Despite this, knowing that the war was still raging on, her mother taught her children how to clean and do other menial tasks to prepare them for the potential of losing their status. After arriving in Canada, she has to get her first job at the age of 34. Because of the job she has worked, she is able to dream bigger dreams for her children. In addition to this quiet, practical adaptability, she also conveys her devotion to her children through more subtle, nonverbal actions, which Anton will later need to adapt in order to communicate with her own son. While Anton's mother rarely expresses her devotion to her children with her words, her actions demonstrate a level of care rooted in practicality, which later helps Anton connect with her son who communicates nonverbally. This is especially evident in the vignette where Anton is sent to the store to get sugar, and her mother tells her not to come back until she has it. Anton feels as though she has been abandoned, when in fact her mother has been watching over her the entire time and called the grocer to come help her. For Anton's mother, the best way she can show her commitment to her children is by making them resilient and strong, and to prepare them for their new life in Canada. These nonverbal, practical displays of affection later become the foundation for how Anton approaches dealing with Henry's autism diagnosis. Anton's calm reaction to her son's diagnosis mirrors the stoicism so present in her mother, demonstrating that restraint can become an act of love and devotion. She describes her reaction as, quote, "I didn't cry out and I didn't weep," end quote. Throughout the rest of the vignette, Anton focuses more on her son than on herself. In particular, she focuses on how her son would never be able to understand her emotions, especially those she has because of him. For example, she states, quote, "He will never understand why I cried when he smiled for the first time," end quote, and that his joy is a blessing for Anton. She also learns to encourage bonds within her family from her mother, shaping how Anton structures her own household, and encouraging a close relationship between her children, especially as the two are again unable to communicate verbally. Even subtle details such as Anton sharing a room with her siblings demonstrates how her mother instills a bond among her children, which continues throughout their journey as refugees, and which Anton later carries into her own parenting. When Pascal and Henry were young, Anton had them share a bedroom. This is a way for the children to develop a bond without needing to use words to communicate. Prior to sharing a room, Henry barely acknowledged Pascal's existence. After being made to share a room, Henry often sought the physical comfort of his brother's arms. Because of this, the two developed a closer bond, which proves to be life-saving when Pascal saves Henry after he walks into traffic. Anton's aunts serve as a contrast to the stoicism and practicality of her mother, which shows Antin a complementary approach to being a parent. They bring joy and emotion into her life and serve to teach her important lessons about motherhood. These lessons will serve to help Antin understand the relationship between parenting and survival and will be beneficial in raising her son, Henry. Her Aunt Seven, and just for a bit of context here, in some cultures, naming is, like if you're the seventh daughter, your name is Seven. So her Aunt Seven in particular teaches her an important lesson in motherhood through unpredictability and emotion. Antin is described as being always hot and needing to let out steam, often by hitting things. Her and her son are described as having some of the same characteristics as Henry. For example, they all run away frequently. When Aunt Seven runs away, she is typically found by her family after a few days. When her son ran away from home, he eventually stopped coming back. Henry is always followed by his mother and his brother, making it harder for him to run away permanently. He does, however, like I said, have a tendency to run into traffic without paying much attention. So in addition to these familial influences, Antin's identity as a whole and as a mother is shaped by her experiences fleeing Vietnam. Some of the descriptions she gives of seeing parents give up their children are devastating to imagine. One of these descriptions she gives is, quote, "That mother wanted me to replace her. She preferred to cry over her child's absence rather than watching her running after tourists to sell them the tablecloth she'd embroidered," end quote. For this mother, the risk of her child dying while separated from her is preferable to the future she knows her child will have if she stays in Vietnam. Antin's early impression of parenthood was significantly influenced by these notions of abandonment and displacement as an act of survival. Antin's experience as a refugee showed her that identity can be fluid. She's constantly living between her Vietnamese culture, her experiences as a refugee, and her new Canadian identity. Her and her family's lives have already changed in an instant, multiple times, which teaches Antin the important lesson that nothing in this world is permanent. The family was forced to leave their home, they became refugees in a Malaysian camp, and finally, the family became Canadian citizens. This experience allowed Antin to become more comfortable with the idea that nothing in life is static. This is an extremely beneficial perspective to have when raising a child on the autism spectrum, as his condition is likely constantly changing. Antin's experience with navigating between roles directly informs her relationship with Henry. Overall, this has been influenced by a number of factors, including her relationship with her mother, generational relationships, and her experience as a refugee. And these are the foundations for the kindness, patience, and empathy Antin utilizes in raising